The rain falls harder now, drumming against the restaurant windows like fingers tapping an impatient rhythm. Al Pacino stands beneath the narrow awning of a newsstand, collar turned up, watching the warm light spill from Carmine's across the street. Inside, families crowd around red checkered tables, steam rising from plates of pasta, voices mixing with the clink of silverware and wine glasses. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like it. He's been walking for 40 minutes. The premiere ended at 9, handshakes and photographs and careful smiles until his face ached. Then the after party at some hotel ballroom, more of the same, industry people saying industry things while waiters circulated with champagne and small talk. He slipped out through the kitchen, past dishwashers who looked up from their work but said nothing, and found himself on the street with rain beginning to fall. His driver is probably still waiting outside the hotel, engine running, checking his phone every few minutes. The car is warm and dry, and stocked with bottled water and the evening papers. But Al Pacino keeps walking, drawn by something he can't name toward places where nobody expects him to be anyone in particular. The restaurant looks familiar, though he's never eaten it. It's the kind of place his grandmother would have liked. Simple, honest, the sort of establishment where the same family has worked the same shifts for 20 years. Through the window, he can see an elderly man wiping down tables while a woman counts the day's receipts. Their movements are practiced, comfortable, like a dance they've performed together 1,000. A couple hurries past, sharing an umbrella, laughing about something private. They don't look at him. To them, he's just another man caught in the rain, anonymous and ordinary. The thought should comfort him, but instead it sits heavy in his chest. When was the last time someone saw him without recognizing it? When was the last time he was just another person in a crowd? He steps closer to the restaurant window. A family of 4 sits at a corner table, the children maybe 8 and 10 years old. The boy is trying to twirl spaghetti on his fork while his sister makes faces at him across the table. Their parents watch with tired but content expressions, occasionally reaching over to help with a stubborn noodle or to refill a water glass. Normal life, unperformed and unstaged. The warmth from inside fogs the glass where his breath touches it. He wipes it clear with his sleeve and continues watching. The father says something that makes everyone laugh, even the boy who is concentrating so hard on his pasta. It's the kind of laugh that comes easy, unguarded, the kind Al Pacino hasn't heard directed at him in years. People laugh at his movies, at his characters, at the lines he delivers. But when did someone last laugh with him? Not at his performance, but at him. A waiter appears in the window, maybe 25 years old, carrying a tray of steaming plates. He moves between tables with casual efficiency, chatting briefly with customers, refilling glasses, clearing empty dishes. His job looks simple from the outside, but Al Pacino recognizes the performance in it. The smile, the attentive posture, the way he leans in to listen to orders. Everyone's acting to some degree. The difference is that most people get to stop when they go home. The rain intensifies, sending pedestrians scurrying under awnings and into doorways. Al Pacino remains where he is, getting wet, watching life happen behind glass. A young couple enters the restaurant, shaking rain from their coats, laughing about the weather. The hostess greets them warmly, leads them to a table by the window. They sit facing each other, hands touching across the tablecloth, absorbed in whatever private world couples create between themselves. He tries to remember the last time he sat in a restaurant like this one. Not a premier dinner or industry lunch or carefully orchestrated public appearance, but just a meal in a normal place with normal people. The memory doesn't come. Somewhere along the way, he stopped eating in places where he might be recognized, stopped going anywhere he might have to be Al Pacino unexpectedly. His world shrunk to private dining rooms and exclusive clubs and restaurants where discretion is part of the service. A child presses her face against the window from inside, breathing fog circles on the glass. She's maybe 5 years old, bored while her parents finish their coffee and conversation. She sees him standing outside and waves. Without thinking, he waves back. She grins and makes another fog circle, then draws a smiley face with her finger. Her mother notices and gently pulls her away from the window, but not before the child waves again. The interaction lasts maybe 30 seconds. But standing there in the rain, Al Pacino feels something shift in his chest. The child didn't recognize him, didn't want anything from him except that small moment of connection. She saw a person standing outside in the rain and decided to be kind. Simple as that. No cameras, no contracts, no careful calculations about image or reputation. Just human recognition between strangers. He walks to the restaurant door and stops with his hand on the handle. Through the glass, he can see the warm interior, the busy tables, the easy interactions between people who belong here. He could go inside, ask for a table, order something simple. The hostess might recognize him, or she might not. Either way, he could sit and eat and try to remember what it feels like to be just another customer. But his hand doesn't turn the handle, because he knows what would happen. Even if the hostess doesn't recognize him, someone else will. The whispers would start, then the phone cameras, then the careful dance of pretending not to notice while actually documenting every moment. Within minutes, his simple dinner would become a performance, another data point in the ongoing construction of his public image. The door opens, and a man exits the restaurant, holding it for an elderly woman with a walker. They chat briefly about the rain before parting ways, the woman shuffling slowly down the sidewalk while the man waits under the awning for a taxi. Neither pays attention to Al Pacino standing beside the door. To them, he's part of the scenery, invisible in the way that only famous people understand the true value. Standing this close to the entrance, he can smell the food, garlic and tomatoes and fresh bread, the kind of simple Italian cooking his grandmother used to make on Sunday afternoon. The scent triggers something deep in his memory, a longing that goes beyond hunger. He remembers being 12 years old, standing in his grandmother's kitchen while she taught him to roll meatballs, her hands guiding his flour dusting the countertop like snow. Those Sunday dinners were events that lasted for hours. Extended family would arrive throughout the afternoon, each bringing something to contribute to the feast. His Uncle Tony always brought wine from the same shop in Little Italy. His Aunt Rose brought her famous tiramisu. His cousin Frank brought his accordion and would play old Italian songs until someone told him to stop. The apartment would fill with smoke and laughter and arguments about politics and baseball and who made the best marinara sauce in the neighborhood. Al Pacino was essential to those gatherings, not as a future celebrity, but as Kate's grandson, the quiet boy who helped serve dinner and clear plates and could always be counted on to remember everyone's drink preferences. He had a role that was his alone, a place at the table that existed whether he was there or not. People noticed when he was absent, asked about him, saved him leftovers for later. The man's taxi arrives, and he disappears into the night. The elderly woman makes slow progress down the block, her walker clicking against the wet pavement. Al Pacino watches her go, wondering about her life, her family, whether someone is waiting for her to come home. Normal people with normal problems, navigating normal evenings in ways he's forgotten how to navigate. He steps back from the restaurant door, deeper into the shadows of the awning. A group of teenagers walks past, loud and careless, absorbed in their own drama. One of them glances at him briefly, but shows no sign of recognition. To them, he's just another middle-aged man standing alone in the rain, possibly homeless, possibly drunk, possibly just waiting for someone who may or may not show up. The anonymity should feel liberating, but instead it sits like a weight in his chest. When did he become someone people look through rather than? When did his face become so associated with performance that people can't see the person underneath? He spent decades cultivating his image, controlling his public presence, managing every detail of how Al Pacino appears to the world. But somewhere in that process, he seems to have misplaced the man behind the name. His phone buzzes. Text message, probably his assistant or driver or someone from the studio checking on his whereabouts. The entertainment industry operates on schedules and expectations, and his absence from the after-party has probably been noted. Tomorrow there will be articles about who was there and who wasn't, speculation about his mood or his health or his relationship with the director. Everything he does or doesn't do becomes content for someone else's story. He doesn't check the message. Instead, he looks back through the restaurant window at the family with young children. They're finishing their meal now, the father helping the boy with his jacket while the mother gathers purses and leftover breadsticks. The kind of routine family moment that happens millions of times every night in restaurants all over the world, unremarkable and precious in its ordinariness. The family files out, past him, into the rain. The parents nod politely in his direction. The children too busy with their own concerns to notice him standing. They walk away together, the father carrying the younger child while the mother holds an umbrella over all of them. A unit complete and self-contained, needing nothing from the outside world except each other. Al Pacino remembers being part of something like that, before his world divided into public and private, before every meal became a potential photo opportunity. He had girlfriends who knew him as something other than Al Pacino, friends who called him by his real name and expected nothing from him except his company. But those relationships exist mostly in the past now, casualties of a life that requires too much management and offers too little genuine human contact. He turns away from the restaurant and continues walking down the street. The rain has eased to a steady drizzle, and more people venture onto the sidewalks. A couple argues quietly outside a bookstore. A man walks his dog, both of them looking miserable in the weather. A group of college students emerges from a bar, loud and young and unconsciously confident in their right to take up space in the world. 3 blocks down, he passes another restaurant, this one smaller and more crowded. Italian food, the kind of place his grandfather might have owned if he'd stayed in New York instead of returning to Sicily when Al Pacino was 15. The windows are steamed with humidity and conversation. The tables packed tight together. Everyone inside looks comfortable with the closeness, the shared space, the easy intimacy of strangers eating in proximity. A woman sits alone at the counter, reading a paperback novel while she eats. She looks to be in her 40s. Professional clothes, slightly rumpled from a long day at whatever job, keeps her busy enough to eat dinner alone at 9:30 on a Thursday night. Every few minutes, she turns a page, occasionally pausing to take a sip of wine or a bite of her meal. She seems perfectly content with her solitude, unbothered by the conversations happening around her. Al Pacino envies her composure, her easy relationship with being alone in public. When he's alone, it feels like a spotlight follows him, illuminating his isolation for everyone to see. But she makes solitude look like a choice rather than a circumstance, something embraced rather than endured. She belongs in this space, not because she's with someone else, but because she belongs with herself. The rain stops suddenly, as if someone turned off a faucet. People emerge from doorways and awnings, shaking umbrellas, resuming interrupted journeys. The city exhales, relieved, ready to continue with its Thursday night business. But Al Pacino continues walking, no longer using the weather as an excuse to stand still and watch other people's lives through glass. He passes a coffee shop where a few tables sit outside under a striped awning. The chairs are still wet from the rain, but a young man in a denim jacket sits down anyway, pulls out a laptop, and begins typing. A barista brings him a towel without being asked, wipes down the table, then returns inside. The gesture is small but kind, the sort of casual consideration that happens between people who see each other regularly, who recognize each other as part of the same small community. This is what Al Pacino misses most, he realizes. Not grand gestures or public recognition, but the small acknowledgments that happen between people who share space regularly. The nod from the doorman who sees you every morning. The extra shot of espresso from the barista who knows how you take your coffee. The held elevator, the shared complaint about the weather, the tiny interactions that make you feel part of something larger than yourself. Fame eliminated those connections by making every interaction significant, every casual encounter a potential news story. He can't have a regular coffee shop or a neighborhood restaurant or a corner newsstand where the owner knows his name. Every relationship becomes professional, mediated by assistance and security and the careful choreography required to protect his privacy and manage his image. 5 blocks from the first restaurant, Al Pacino finds himself in front of another establishment entirely. This one is more upscale, the kind of place where he might actually be expected to appear. Valet parking, doormen in uniforms, windows tinted dark enough to protect diners' privacy for photographers and curiosity seekers. The sort of establishment where celebrities eat when they want to be seen eating, where paparazzi occasionally gather on the sidewalk hoping for candid shots. He knows he should feel more comfortable here among his own kind. The staff would recognize him immediately, escort him to a private table, ensure his meal proceeded without interruption. The other diners would be similarly famous or wealthy or connected, people who understand the rules of public visibility and private discretion. He could eat in peace, protected by mutual understanding and shared circumstance. But looking through the tinted windows at the carefully lit tables and precisely arranged flowers, he feels nothing but exhaustion. The performance required to eat here, To be Al Pacino in a place designed for Al Pacinos seems impossible tonight. He's too tired to manage his image, too worn down by the evening's careful smiles and measured responses to do it again. A couple emerges from the restaurant, well-dressed and carefully composed. The woman's dress probably costs more than most people make in them. The man's watch catches the light from the street lamps as he checks the time. They wait for their car to be brought around, making quiet conversation about people Al Pacino probably knows professionally, but has never really met as a human being. Their car arrives, sleek and black with windows tinted dark enough to hide whoever sits inside. They slide into the back seat and disappear into the night, traveling from one protected environment to another. Al Pacino recognizes the choreography because he lives it too. Private car to private entrance to private table to private car again. A life conducted in isolation, connected to the world only through glass and performance and the careful management of public appearance. He walks away from the restaurant, leaving behind the valet stand and the doorman and the carefully curated atmosphere designed to make famous people feel safe from the world. They've become too famous to navigate freely. The street stretches ahead of him, lined with more ordinary places, more windows glowing with regular life. But now he understands that he can't enter any of them. Not really. The distance between the sidewalk and the warmth inside those restaurants isn't measured in steps. It's measured in years of careful image construction, decades of learning to be Al Pacino instead of just being himself. He can observe, he can want, he can remember what it felt like to belong somewhere without having to perform belonging. But the child drawing smiley faces on the restaurant window, the woman reading alone at the counter, the family laughing over pasta exist on the other side of glass that fame has made impermeable. His phone buzzes again. This time he checks it. His driver, asking if he's ready to be picked up, wondering if everything is okay. Al Pacino types back a location 6 blocks away, then puts the phone in his pocket. The walk will give him a few more minutes to be nobody in particular, just another man on a wet street in a city full of strangers who don't want anything from him except to be left alone. But as he walks, Al Pacino carries with him the sounds from all those restaurant windows, conversation and laughter and the quiet contentment of people who can eat together without worrying about who might be watching, who might be taking pictures, who might turn their private moment into public content. The warmth behind all that glass isn't just about temperature or shelter. It's about belonging somewhere, being part of something larger than yourself, being known not for what you do, but for who you are when no one is performing. The car arrives on schedule, engine running, passenger door opening before he reaches. He slides into the familiar leather seat. The driver asks if he had a good evening, the same ritual every night. Al Pacino says yes, because that's what's expected, because the truth is too complicated for polite conversation. As they pull away toward the Upper West Side, he looks back at the restaurants glowing with warm light. Inside, people eat dinner, talk freely, live ordinary lives that won't be analyzed or turned into something else. Lives that belong only to them. He leans back and closes his eyes. Tomorrow there will be more windows, more moments of wondering what it would feel like to belong somewhere again. Tonight, moving through empty streets toward an apartment that feels like another stage, he understands that some distances can't be crossed no matter the fame, the money, the recognition. The city passes by, full of people who can walk into any restaurant without consequence. And Al Pacino, famous enough to go anywhere, too famous to truly go anywhere, rides home carrying the weight of all that warmth and connection happening just beyond the glass, close enough to see, impossible to join. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment with your thoughts on the video. I always enjoy reading your feedback.